Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news. It's a Monday evening rant with our friend and property expert extraordinaire, Edwin. Hello, Edwin. How are you going?
And we can add another title, Martin. Creators of news. We are the creators of news. We are the news, Martin.
Well, we have been calling it quite well, haven't we? I'm afraid that eventually events follow us.
Well, look, it's just one of those things. You just got to read what the tea leaves are saying, right?
We make the tea leaves.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to see how the mainstream are now only just talking about some of the issues surrounding that development over in Newcastle. But more importantly, as our followers will. We'll look at the post that we put up on Twitter and that we share also on Twitter. Apart from the video, we try to take snaps of our videos and put it up on the Twitter feed so people can look at specific topics. But it's interesting that now the as I call it, Opal Tower 2.0 is there's sinkholes appearing in the construction site itself. Martin, what do you think about that?
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? It's definitely an extreme example, but you know, and I know that the quality of construction is pretty bad across the country, particularly some of these newer developments. The control processes aren't adequate. People are cutting corners left, right, and centre. So it doesn't surprise me that we are seeing more problems. And of course, it doesn't necessarily all pop out on day one, but a lot of people are living in properties that, frankly, they probably shouldn't be.
No, that's right. And we're going to talk about a few of those issues on our podcast today. But look, if they follow the tweets, and I'm not sure you were able to take that video down of to post it onto our followers of that video that's been shared by I think Newcastle Herald. It's an interesting video, and it shows you the extent and the size of the sinkhole that's appearing. And I'm saying in the construction site. What's interesting, Martin, as Simon Holcomb pointed out, he's actually the one that alluded me to that video after watching our show a couple of weeks back when we brought to the attention of the public the issue surrounding this development over in Newcastle. And when I went to that video that I've sent to you, and I try to get other information about it, there is one other article, and it's in a property magazine. Wait for it. It's in the real estate property magazine. And the author of that article says, "Oh, nothing to worry about. It's just a pothole." What, a pothole inside the construction site? And I mean, if you look at the size, if you look at the video, you got to watch the video to see the actual size and the magnitude of this sinkhole that's appearing in the construction site. And it's look, if you and I went down there and you stood on my shoulders, you wouldn't get your head out of the you wouldn't be able to see out of the hole. So what are they going to do? Are they just going to backfill it with concrete? What are they actually going to do is a big question. And how is this going to be reported to the purchasers that, once again, that we reported? We said that the sub-penthouse apartments were going for $2.4 million. I mean, this is so phenomenal stuff, Martin. This is not a small amount of money. We're talking $2.4 million for a sub-penthouse apartment, and you got these issues already, and construction is going to be completed at the end of 2024. I mean, I really, look, I'm of the opinion that unless there's a lot, unless there's a sizable brown paper bag or an LD reusable bag going into council, they will not achieve occupation certificate. That's what Dusty tells me.
Well, but it doesn't beg the question, of course, that what they should be doing is root cause analysis as to what caused the sinkhole, and how wide are the issues. Is that just the sort of the midpoint of something much bigger? And we had a lot, of course, flooding rains in recent months, so there's lots of potential issues there. And I guess it comes back to a fundamental question: what is the right level of disclosure that prospective purchasers should have with regard to new property? Because at the moment, it seems to me that the disclosure levels are abysmally low, and very little information is available to them. And therefore, what are they buying? Well, nobody knows.
Yeah, well, that's right. And how much of that is sort of like, I mean, the selling agents can just block their ears and say, don't tell me, don't tell me. If you don't tell me, then if I don't listen to it, if I don't hear it, I don't know. So therefore, I don't have to say anything to the prospective buyers, right? And that's how it's been all along, Martin. As you and I have said, no matter how much legislation comes, the government brings in, no matter how many regulations they want the industry to adopt, with it comes 5, 10, 15 other loopholes and other ways of, get out of jail free cards for the real estate agents, the selling agents, which have the onus to convey all that information to the purchasers, right? Whether it be an established home, whether it be an off-the-plan property, under construction, whatever it is, there is a duty of care. But who wants to do that if it's going to prolong the sale, if it's going to mean that at the end of the day, the agent isn't going to get the commission? I mean, we've been talking about that, hence the reason why if they want reform, we have to go back to the discussion that we had last week, and that is we have to change the way that the remuneration structure is packaged up for the industry. Otherwise, it's not going to change no matter what. Moving on from that, Martin, from that story that we broke, and we will continue to break further news, because I've now got engineers and other builders checking things out a little bit deeper with regard to that building, and we'll bring more information to light as we get it. Then you've got other news as well. How long ago have we been talking about the Chinese investors, local investors as well as foreign investors, and also from Malaysia, other Asian countries, Singapore, India, for that matter. And now it's only now that the news are making the general public aware of what's happening. I mean, we were warned about this, over 6 months ago, and we were trying to tell the general public what was happening in light of all the again the immigration policies that the government was changing from month to month, week by week. It's really, I don't know. Look, is there a way? I mean, apart from the calling on the government in general, is there a way to sack this government and put somebody else in place? I mean, this is crazy. It's absolutely mind-boggling what's happening, and now we've gone from DEFCON 1 to, I think we're up to DEFCON 3. With the rental arena, and it's becoming really catastrophic when you think about it.
Well, it is, and just to put some context on it, if you take the numbers that the budget released last week, that is equivalent to 1.5 million additional house owners. Right now, 1.5 million, that's the size of Perth. So what we're saying is, over the next couple of years or so, we're going to see the numbers equivalent to the size of Perth landing and basically needing property. There is no way that you could build enough, no way that the infrastructure could be expanded enough. It's literally, 5 Canberras. It's crazy. So we said more than a year ago that the fix was in, and the fix was high migration, right? And it's come true in absolute spades. But of course, the construction industry and even the finance industry is not able to cope with this. The infrastructure is just not going to cope. It's a mess, an absolute mess. And I agree. I think the government needs to explain why it is that they've gone full out big Australia. Well, we know why, of course. That is because the only way they can get a top line growth number is to actually swamp the country with more people. But growth per capita is going to continue to go backwards. And the quality of life, of course, is also going to go backwards too. It's absolutely nuts, but it is central policy for this government. And, unfortunately, ordinary Australians, those in the rental sector, and even those wanting to buy property are going to actually reap the whirlwind here. So we're going to see rentals continue to rise. The property market will get a bit of a kick up from this, despite higher interest rates. It's an absolute mess.
And who are the ones that look? Sorry to say, guys, but who are the ones that miss out on this? Who are the ones that really got sold the lemon? you could say is the first home buyers and the young people that look. Dare I say, and I know I'm going to get stoned probably in the comments. It's the people that voted this government in, voted the majors in, and didn't put didn't tick the independence that would have otherwise put some sort of a control on this migration policy. But look, when you and I were speaking about this in 2019, we knew that the fix was in there, regardless of which major party was going to lead the nation post the election. It was always going to happen. Here we are, but they seem to only continue to make it worse. They're talking about build to rent now, and again, build to rent. What, in my opinion, it's going to be 90% high rise development, which we can't build. They're talking. I mean, they're throwing numbers out there. They're throwing 240,000 new dwellings up there, but in how long? In 10 years. And so forth. I mean, by then, where do they really expect people to live in? I mean, they are living in their cars. Unfortunately, some families. There was an article last week with regard to a couple that have got a couple of kids or so, and they're literally living. Mum and dad are living in the tent, and they've had to put their kids with their family and friends in the meantime. But it's not like they're not earning a quid. Between them, their income is $100,000, Martin, and they can't get a rent where they can't get a rental where they want to rent, and you can't get a. I mean, the mind boggles, right? Because you're in the suburbs, in areas where you can accommodate granny flats, you can accommodate a duplexes, you can accommodate the amalgamation of 2 or 3 of the old fibre homes, and you could, as I said, you could go into the building of the medium density, small medium density developments. Your typical villas, your typical townhouses. Because I'm not talking about the high rise stuff. I'm talking about the small to medium density stuff. But again, you've got this pushback from local governments, pushback from the internal politics. We're just so overgoverned. And yet nothing happens, and the only thing that happens is the property arena seems to be getting deeper and deeper into a mess. I mean, again, further to the news of "we told you so" or "here we are the news," whatever you want to call this segment, Martin. I mean, there's that story on news.com about the Malay. Singaporean, Indian families now that are looking at and they're buying, in droves the homes down in Melbourne. But the same thing's been happening here in Sydney as well. So again, we are the news, Martin. We are the news, and it's getting a little bit scary sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, I think perhaps we should stop making these shows then, because obviously what happens is that people get the ideas and then follow on with it. But no,
politicians get the ideas. Now, the good thing about the show, Martin, is the fact that we can warn the people that follow us. We can warn them and point out certain things. And I mean, I know you get a lot of emails from the followers and the viewers, and you forward them on to me. Because we're looking at across the landscape. It's not just sales. It's not just about selling. It's not just about buying. It's not just about. It's also about renting, and to an extent also the people that are looking at downsizing and going into retirement homes and the like. So it's across the board. Now, what are the WeChat chatter saying, Martin? In light of all this, what we're talking about, if you as we understand the WeChat chatter is the Asian community. We know that they're very, very, what would you call it, superstitious. They're very adverse to, buying a property that there was a death in that occurred in that property. There was violence and the like. I mean, the legislation goes back to that issue with LJ Hooker and the Filipino family over at Ryde. Hence the reason why we have to disclose material facts and so forth. But you know what they're saying, Martin? Forget about all that. We're not going to live in the property, so who cares? They're out in the hunt. 3 of the WeChat chatter groups, the investment groups, are talking about this current property that came on a Daily Mail, and it was in relation to the House of Horrors that was snapped up as a rental after it was put on the market, within a week or so, and the agent disclosed the fact that there was a beheading in that house, in 2019. It was done up by 2020 and put on the market for rent, and it just achieved a little bit above the the average rental for that area. But it went. So what that's done is the chatter amongst the three of the chatter groups here, local investor groups, property investment groups, or investment in general, but they're focusing on property at the moment, as we know, is they're saying, well, look, let's keep on looking for these homes that have got issues. We're not going to be living in them, but because of the rental situation, who cares? It just looks like they're just being taken. They're taken up anyway, and the other folk, as we're called, the other folk, we don't really care. The majority of the rental pool and the population, the rental population, don't really care. They just want a roof over their head, so they're just going to overlook a lot of things. So they are on the hunt for homes that have got serious material fact issues, and they're just going to go out because they figured, well, we're going to get them a lot cheaper. We can do them up, clean them up, do whatever it takes to clean them up and put them in the rental market because they're just going to go like that. Whereas in previous years, you wouldn't even consider it because it could potentially lag on the market for a long time before they were rented.
Absolutely. And I guess the article that follows is, the other side of the coin, right? So this is the Stanmore Property. The point is that their calculus is completely different, right? Because what they're doing is to say, okay, how many bedrooms, how many can I create? How many single occupancy units can I create within the property? Which means that you can generate a significantly higher level of income, which means that effectively you can pay a hell of a lot more than a standard Aussie family.
Well, that's it. And this is what a lot of people look. This is what some people have having to go at our discussions, and I think people need to understand a couple of things. Calling the Chinese investors WeChat chatters is just a name that I've adopted because the groups are on WeChat and we call them chatterers, right? And so that's why I call them WeChat chatterers. The other name that we often throw around is the little aunties, right? Look, in the Chinese community, a person that's older than you call them uncle and you call them auntie. So I know why people are getting upset with me on social media about these names. And thirdly, more importantly, what we're reporting here, and hence why people in these groups, in the WeChat chatter groups, the local Chinese investors that have got a lot of money, that they've had businesses here, they've been here for 40, 50 years. In some cases, they're first generation Australians that have grown up here. As I said, they've been here 40, 50 years, ran businesses, they've cashed out of the businesses. They don't want to put the money back into a business, into a takeaway joint, or into hospitality or into any other business because they don't feel secure about it. So they're putting in the money. So as you said, they're throwing money into property. And let's not get confused about the fact that they disclose to us in these groups, they disclose publicly what they are going to do with these properties and who they're competing with. They're competing with other WeChat chatterers, other local Chinese investors for the same property. They talk about it. They themselves talk about the little aunties with that they don't want to. Even they themselves don't. Some of them don't want to go toe to toe with the little aunties because they'll have more money than what they have. And this is what's driving a lot of this property up, because they can carve up the property, the 3-bedroom home, into a 5-bedroom dwelling, because they don't care about lounge rooms, they don't care about dining rooms, they don't care. To them, that is just an extra room they can enclose to convert it into a bedroom, and they're in the transport lines that would take the Chinese students that have come over in the droves, and any other Chinese individual that's come over, whether it be on a working visa or they're a ghost migrant, whatever, because they look at these properties not the way that you or I would look at a property in the general sense. They look at these properties. Where can I put more rooms? How can I turn 3 walls? How can I enclose 3 walls and turn it into another bedroom? They'll look at relane access, and they'll say, well, okay, we've got relane access. There's a garage in the rear. what do I need to do, whether it be through council approval, whether it be approaching council, going through CDC, or just doing it just without anybody knowing that I'm doing it, and convert it into a dwelling, because that's what they do, right? So I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to be, what's the word? I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I'm not picking on these groups. It's just the nature, it's just the information that's passed on. And truth be told, Martin, this is something, they share a lot of my personal life. My daughter is Chinese. Yeah, my daughter's Chinese. My ex-wife is Chinese. So therefore I've got aunties that are relatives. I've got aunties and uncles, and that is the term. But look, take it for what it's worth. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that we're being racist or any way. And those that have taken it that way, I'm sorry you've taken it that way. But these are just simple facts. No different to what I know Lebanese people do to a corner block and subdivide that. I mean, it's just the nature of these beasts, right? And if they've got the cash, they're coming in. I think where we have to draw the line with a lot of this is understanding the fact that we know that these people have worked hard for the money. They've got the cash in hand. They're not coming in with 10% deposits, not coming in with 5% deposits, doing a joint venture with the government, or getting a subsidy here or subsidy. No, they're coming in with cash. Hence the reason why I say don't go toe to toe in an auction in an area that is going to be in high demand for these individuals, for this community, this group of people, because what they do to a property and how they rent the property is not through your normal channels. And you, whether you're an investor, you may get $1,000 a week rent for the property, but guess what? They'll get $2,500 a week rent, right? And if you're an owner or occupier, why inflate the price of that area? Because you're just getting all emotional about it. This is what I say: run away, run away. Don't go toe to toe. Live to fight another day. Because all people are doing is just inflating the prices of the dwellings around them unnecessarily. The neighbours are absolutely wrapped with regards to this property at Stanmore that sold for $2.3 million. With 20 or 30 bidders present and everybody going toe to toe, all types of different groups and communities. Apparently it was insane. I wasn't there myself, but the WeChat chatter, one of the WeChat chatters was there and saying it's just crazy watching people try to. It's like, I guess Martin, it's help me out here. It's what would say. It's like trying to jump in the ring with with two hands tied behind your back.
Well, the point here, Edwin, is if you're just a standard buyer and you're trying to buy for your own family, right, you will be competing with people who have a completely different set of commercial logic behind the transaction. And that means that they're going to be able to bid up a lot higher. I'd also say, and you could also well be competing with people who are in the building and construction sector who are looking at it not as a single occupancy property, but also as a knockdown and rebuild with 2, 3, 4, or even more units on it, right? So that's what you have to understand. You have to understand who your competitors are when you're actually thinking about purchasing. And if the internal logic that other people are using from a commercial perspective means they can big up the price much higher than you, then you need to be very careful that you don't end up playing that game and either being disappointed because they can outbid you, or indeed you actually overpay, which means then that you've got a property that is actually not really worth what you've paid for it. And that's the danger that I see. Again, so many people are so desperate to get into the property market and are paying over the odds because they're competing with people who actually essentially have a completely different set of internal logic about what the value of that property is. And that's the critical issue we're trying to home in at. And it's not racist, it's just an observation about the way that the market dynamics are working.
Yeah, look, people get upset, because they we say these things. Well, so be it. We're just presenting. We're just trying to present information so that people can be clued up and make proper choices when they're out there. Moving on, Martin. I thought it was rather interesting what Luke Christopher posted with regards to the Australian. Overall, the Australian residential property rental vacancy rates have risen, and when you read his reports a lot deeper, you have an understanding that they've risen, but a lot of it's really still happening in the regions and and well and truly in the regional areas. And my assumption for that is because, as you've also pointed out in other videos, is the businesses and that are really being screwed out in regional towns, and with banks pulling out and pulling away and making it harder to run a business and to provide a service to a community. I mean, what do? You just got to pack up and you just got to get closer to where the action is, where the population is, right? So everybody's moving to the main cities, and the vacancy rates in the main cities are pretty much stagnant or remaining very, very low, and not by the evidence of the listings that we see online on a week by week basis, and the reports that we get from locals. But the regions, I'd say they're the ones that are pulling this the overall vacancy rates up. What are your thoughts with this? I don't know if you had a chance to read his reports, Louis' report.
No, I did. And look, my observation is that averages mask quite a lot of significant differences. So there are areas where vacancy rates are still very, very tight. There are other areas where it's a completely different story, some of the regional areas as well. So you need to actually go granular, as you and I continue to say, Edwin, there's not a uniform picture. The interesting thing, of course, that Lindsay David also highlighted the fact that the actual stamp duty, the average stamp duty being paid, is dropping a moment, which tells you something about the transaction mix and all of those things in New South Wales. So there are a lot of indicators below the surface, which a lot of media doesn't cover very well at all. They talk about these high-level averages and miss a lot of the complexity. And and I know that Stanmore is not behaving in the same way as Thurrool, for example. They're completely different markets with different drivers, different dynamics, different prospective purchasers, different lists. I mean, they are so different.
Yeah, and look, I thought the points that Lindsay brings out are very, very important. I mean, our mate Tom put out a post, not too long ago, about an hour or so ago, and put out a post and said that the CoreLogic reports are the best reports in the universe, and basically, if you're not adhering to it, you're a fool. But look, in his way, I'm just sort of plagiarizing what he says. But what Lindsay brings out, as you're saying, Martin, is really important, because as you start analyzing what he's saying, and you sort of started thinking about his post. Well, let's not forget that you've got the choices between the stamp duty and your land tax options, right? So CoreLogic aren't going to pick that up, right? Or how are they going to report on that? And then of course you've got also the less amount of transactions, what's recorded, and last but not no means least is the lag of representation. But so what Lindsay's actually gone and done is actually looked at the actual the stamp duty paid on land. So so he's looking at the Value General's sites or reports, as opposed to a mainstream reporting house that best case scenario lags by 72 days. So there's a lot of things happening there, but obviously the mainstream, in order to write a story, in order to put things out, they've got to paint everything with the same brush, right? And this is where a lot of people get caught out, like you said. Not your Stanmores don't that don't perform like your Thoruls, or you could say like your Hornsby's or Asquiths and so forth. So it's a bit all over the place. But look, one of the things that Lindsay he DM'd me a question, and I replied to him before the show, and he asked the question basically, what is happening with the real estate industry, right? And I said to him, well, Martin, I've been reporting on the low volume of sales, and it's an industry that is shrinking. A lot of the main selling agents have gotten rid of the PAs because they're not turning over the property. The sales aren't happening, so therefore they're not earning the commissions, right? So therefore they're not earning an income in order to pay for the PAs. They may work on a commission-based scenario with the office that they're operating under, but the PAs, they can't work as full commission agents because they're not fully licensed, and so they will be on the award. So a lot of agents and a lot of agencies, particularly in the Northwest region, are getting rid of the PAs, as we talked about it. I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So this is so it's an industry that is in a lot of pain. So I basically wrote back to him also and said, deja vu 2019.
Absolutely. Well, we are seeing it all come around again, and I think those low volume numbers are putting huge pressure on the RE sector, particularly those with cash flow problems. They can get through for a little while. One reason why many people are actually being encouraged to go to auctions. The auctions tend to be shorter these days, and the marketing costs are going up. They're trying everything to try and get that money coming through. But if they don't make a sale, then that's going to be a big deal. And it's worth just highlighting, I think, the numbers, Edwin, because the numbers continue to show the listings are sliding. So last week we had 15,330 in New South Wales. Now it's 15,039. So a further small slide. No surprise, of course. You and I expected the winter season to be pretty weak, and even Melbourne's the same way. So 23,691 compared to 24,273 last week. So we are going through that winter freeze, and that's going to put a hell of a lot of pressure on agents who have no way to cover the costs of their business, other than, as you say, getting rid of PAs and cutting back and, well, working harder maybe, although of course harder is all relative, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And look, and this is where we said this is where you're going to get the two extremes. You're going to get the overexcited, over emotional buyers, and they're just going to absolutely inflate the value of the properties needlessly because they're in panic mode. They're the partners are pushing them to buy. We've been sitting on the fence for 2 years. If you don't buy now, I'm going to leave you. Blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. So all that's obviously happening. That fear that they don't see any new development coming up. So you're going to get a lot of that. What I say to people, if you need to be in the market, you want to be in the market to buy, you just got to go steady and search and dig and fossick and ask, because the last thing you want to be doing is getting caught up in an emotional battle with somebody else that's just as emotional, if not more emotional than what you are, and end up with not only paying over the odds, but then paying for future rectification work of 10, 15, 20% on top of the extra 10% emotion that you threw in there for just to secure a property. So that's what needs to happen. And yes, be in the market, look and fossick and ask and dig around as much as you want. But I tell you what, Martin, what we are seeing a lot of is, again, we broke this news, 6 months ago or so. We started alluding our viewers as to the portals that the WeChat chatters of the Chinese community have, where properties are being transacted through WeChat. They've been transacted through these other portals other than Domain and REA. Now, today alone, Dusty got offered 2 homes in Asheville, a townhouse in Burwood, and she was looking at another 1-bedroom apartment in Kempsey that are not on any, that are not on domain in REA. So in a way, this is also this is also taking away from the numbers that we're reading on a week-to-week basis, right? Because your typical agents aren't they don't get a sniff of this. Now, interestingly, with these properties, 2 separate agents. So there is an agent involved, but they're under strict instructions not to load the properties on domain or REA.
Right, and that's a very interesting point, because there are a number of what I call quiet listings. In other words, property is on the market, but it's not on the market through the portals, right? And actually, this is becoming more and more of an issue, and some of it's because of the WeChat alternatives. Another is, though, that vendors don't want actually to have their properties on those portals, but the agents know that, you know, if the right person comes along, then they've got the permission to basically float the property. I think this is becoming a more and more significant factor, particularly in a slow market and particularly in a wobbly market. So yeah, these public listings numbers may actually be understating, as indeed the auction numbers, because the auction numbers are still quite low as well. But again, if in fact you are going through the back door, or you're going to a quiet listing, et cetera, you are not going to go through the auction process. So the question, of course, Edwin, is to what extent do the official figures actually give you the real temperature of what's going on? And I would argue that, well, in the round, it's not particularly helpful, but if you go granular, it's even worse, because we know, as we said before, that there are very different dynamics going on in different specific locales. So, you know, there is a lot more here than the official media wants to actually recognize. And by the way, the major portals, of course, don't want to talk about this stuff, because they don't want to claim that there's a market over there that they're not touching, but we know that's true. And by the way, just on Sydney rentals, and there's still 10,000 rental properties in the Sydney area on at the moment, which is, you know, a significant number. So to what extent is the full story of rentals also being told? So I think we're getting partial pictures wherever you look. There's a lot more going on.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, because you see obviously this is in the Sydney region, right? And you see the pressures. But this is what the point that Louis Christopher makes in his report. And that is that the regional areas, there's, you know, you could go beyond the mid mountains and right up to Lithgow, and there's a lot of choice.
Yep.
Right. There's a lot of choice. These are my thoughts, Martin. My thoughts are, as I shared before, is we've got the tide has gone back into the Sydney, the city regions, right? Your Sydney regions, your Melbourne region, Brisbane, you know. And the tide's gone back there. But as the pressure grows in you know, in not being able to find, not being able to accommodate, not being able to find the right properties for yourself, for your young family, your family, and accommodate that, people are going to start pulling back to the region areas again. Maybe not as far as what they did before, because of the work from home scenario, because they'll still be commuting. But I would say, I dare say that you're moving north to your to Gosford, going down towards your Wollongongs, going over to your, even as far as to your Lithgows. Those areas are that tide is going to pull back that way again, because people are going to have to sooner than later bite the bullet, make that sacrifice, and say, right, we're going to have to bear this. Okay, I'm not half an hour away from work. I'm going to be an hour and 20 minutes away from work, commuting to work. Well, so be it, because at least it means that I'm under proper shelter, accommodating my young family. Right? I believe that's going to happen, and we're going to see that play out over the next 3 months. And possibly beyond, if the numbers don't increase over spring in the city areas, particularly the Sydney region. If we don't see that those numbers increase like they did, in the 2022. They began to increase rapidly. They did to an extent in 21 as well, in your spring season, and also 20. But if we don't see that an increase to higher than what we saw last year, and I say higher because the demand is greater this year because of the influx of the migration, right? So if we don't see that, then definitely the regions are going to be inundated once more, because that tide is going to pull back to the regional areas, and you're going to see huge growth in terms of rental asking prices, as well as your property prices in your regions.
Yeah, I agree. I think September is going to be the tipping point, right? We will get a very significant read then. If we start to see more listings coming on because more people are financially under pressure because the mortgage rate finally is bit and they've had to go from a fixed rate to a variable, that could be one of the catalysts. But I agree, I'm already seeing some people through my one-to-one conversations accepting they're going to have to look further out, accepting they're actually going to have to live further away from the main urban centres, despite the fact, as you say, less working from home than previously, simply because closer in, it's impossible because of the dynamics that we discussed earlier on. So it just shows you, I think, how, you've got to go and understand how these dynamics are playing out. Watch the listings. We'll continue to report them on an ongoing basis, of course. I think September will be the tipping point. We will then get a good read as to where this is going to play out. And the final point, of course, is some people are still claiming that the RBA is likely to be cutting rates later in the year. I have my doubts. I think the RBA is probably going to hold the rates, or maybe even extend the rates higher, which is going to put ever more pressure on many households. And certainly my stress data shows that it's still a big problem. So it just shows you, you cannot just jump in and, say, hey, no, we've got to buy. Well, yeah, do the work, go through this analytical process, make sure that you actually are really weighing up all of the issues. I never say never. All I say is make sure that you do the work, make sure that you get the right surveys done, make sure that you get the right information, make sure that you're really comparing apples with apples, and bearing in mind who else potentially is bidding for that property or vying for that property, because it could be somebody who's going to subdivide it into multiple units and let out each room, or it could be somebody who's a builder who's going to actually knock it down and then rebuild it. They have a different economic sense compared with what you might be doing. So you need to be careful that you don't get bounced into paying an exorbitant amount of money, which then puts a lot of pressure in terms of the mortgage. I mean, this is, it's as complex and difficult, I think, that I've ever seen the market, Edwin.
Oh, very. Look, it is, and it changes. It changes rapidly. It's like going to the beach, like as the tide's coming in and then starts to go out, and you get dragged out with it, and then there's rips and all sorts of things. So it's no different. You think one second you think you're standing on terra firma on the sand, and next thing you know, you just sink and you don't know where the hell did that sand go.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, a very good analogy. The tides move quick, the winds change. The rips take the sand away. Oh, it's a very good analogy.
And on top of that, Martin, you've got piranhas and crocodiles. You're real estate agents.
Yeah, you do have a few people who are going to eat your lunch. Exactly right. Well, let's just close out with the tip of the week. An important one this week, Edwin.
Well, yeah. The reason why I bring it out again is because we just got our house insurance is due, and it's gone up by 37%.
Yep.
Now we updated our policy because we contacted our insurer. I won't plug their name because they're not paying us. So we contacted them, and we told them all the things that we've done to the properties since from when we began to insure it under our name, and because the renovations and so forth have been completed, and that's something that I feel that our followers need to do is if you've introduced new security systems, which we spoke about weeks ago, if you've introduced, you've updated your switchboards, which we spoke again months ago with regards to updating your circuit boards, because a lot of older homes are over, the circuit boards are overloaded. If you've done all that, it's worthwhile calling your insurer, telling them what you've done, telling them what you've updated, what you've upgraded, and guess what, Martin? Our policy was discounted by 10%. It's still a lot higher than last year, but just by making that phone call and advising them and informing them what we did, what's been done, and we just sent them they just want to see copies of the receipts. And by the way, we also notified them that the rural fire and the council have been around, and they're going to be clearing a lot of the national park that backs onto that we back onto on one side of the property, and we also advise them of that, and it's all noted down for should anything happen. It's all noted down. But as again, the upside for us, the immediate upside for us was that from that 37% increase, it dropped down to something like only about 25%, 25%. So it's worthwhile. A phone call that made a lot of difference. So yeah, something that our followers could perhaps do themselves.
But good advice, Edwin. And look, the automatic increases that are being applied at the moment are pretty exorbitant. So when you actually go through that process, it is worth chopping around, making sure that the thing is up to date, but also make sure you're not underinsured, of course, because the costs of replacement has gone significantly higher, as we've been discussing. So it's really important to get that insurance correct. And interestingly, I still see quite a few households who've given up on insurance, particularly, of course, if they don't actually have a mortgage. But many people with a mortgage are obliged to insure the building, but not necessarily the contents. So it's quite tricky. Be careful that you don't end up underinsured, because that can create huge issues later. And also make sure that you've not got massive exclusions like, for example, floods or fires and those sorts of things, because the policies are not necessarily always very generous with regard to some of those things. So again, it's an area that you need to spend a bit of time on and really get to understand, shop around, and make sure you're comparing apples with apples.
Yeah, like you said, being underinsured is a very, very good point that you raised there, Martin, because the original house that we renovated, the original house that was built on the block, it was built in 1942. So obviously the standards were a lot different then, and now if God forbid that was to burn down, you couldn't you say, oh, we're insured, you're going to rebuild it. Well, if we're underinsured, what they would give us for how it's built, it's probably only about 60% the value of what it would cost to build under the current regulations, under current BAL, your bushfire ratings, and under the thicknesses of the glass and this and that, and all these sort of other things that you've got to take into account. And this is what if you recall, many years ago, where there was the bushfires, the houses that didn't get rebuilt because they were underinsured, because what they got paid wouldn't even cover back there. I think at that time there were reports of something like wouldn't cover 30-40% of what they could build with the money that they got, based on the current current regulations, the current demands that the local government is making. So yeah, you got to be careful. So definitely, for us, it's all of the above. It's very, very important, and obviously, if you've we've also acquired other bits and pieces, obviously to fill the place up, and setting up the studios and this and that. It all adds up. So we've also had to readdress the contents insurance, which a lot of people do. They get given gifts of high value, antiques, whatever, and you just got to time to evaluate your insurance policies, I'd say.
Yeah, great advice, Edwin. Well, thank you once again. Enjoyed this one, and some very important points being made, I think. And I guess we'll do it all again next week we might do a live show, actually, either next week or the week after. That'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? So we'll see whether we can plan to do that.
Well, it sounds good to me. We could further the discussion on what people. I would really be interested to find out what people think about our viewers, because they're a lot smarter than your average bear that are out there on social media. We could elaborate on the discussion about agents' remuneration and what they think, because I know there's a lot of real estate agents that watch our show. I know that for a fact, because they tap me on the shoulder, scare the shit out of me when I walk into an open house, and they say, "Oh, how's Martin going?" What Edwin? What? So, but it's good. It's good. So yeah, there's a lot of agents that watch us, and it'll be good if they got on board and discuss it. And I'll send out an invite to our mate Tom as well. See if he'd like to join us.
All right. Well, that's good, Ed. Well, thanks very much, and we'll tee that up in the weeks ahead, and look forward to next week.
Sounds good. All the best, Martin.
See ya.
Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.